Hi and welcome to another Dex from the Graphic Design School. My name is Leanne and today we're going to be creating a surf poster in Illustrator. We'll be using custom brushes to create the different elements and layers in the file. We'll also be tracing photographic images and then going into Photoshop and creating this weathered look and also working on saturating the poster. So that is the poster that we have at the moment. In Photoshop, I'll show you how to use saturation to change the colors within the poster so that you can create variations, and also how to colorize it so that you can create a one color type of print. This is my inspiration, so a lot of kind of beautiful summery colors and illustrative styles there. And then that's my color inspiration from Color Lovers. I did adapt it for the final poster. So that is where we should end up today. We're going to start in Illustrator. I have my logo created, and so if you have a logo that you'd like to use in the poster, that would be great. Here is my color palette, so I will show you how to take that color palette into my swatches. So if I open up my swatches, I'm just going to drag it across so it's closer to my panel on the left. I'm then going to just color pick up my colors and drag them into my swatches panel. Once I have them all in, I'll create my own color palette that I can save for future jobs. There we have it. And then I'm gonna, with the last one selected, hold down Shift and select all my colors, then select a new color group, and I'm gonna call that Surf Poster and go OK. And then it should put it all in one folder for me. I can then save that if I like and save my swatch library, and I can call it my surf poster color palette. So if I ever need that color palette again, I can go and load it by going to Open Swatch Library, User Defined, and we should find our surf poster color palette there, and it will load it into our swatches panel. So there we have our color palette to begin with. The first thing we're going to do is start creating the layers. So I've created the layers here so you can see all the layers we need for our work. I also have some images, photographic images that we'll be tracing. And this is from a photographer. Those are my brushes, Mark Morgan, who is a photographer on the Northern Beaches, and I'll put a link to his Instagram in the brief. He does amazing underwater and surf photo shoots and does work for O'Neill and a lot of surf brands around the world. Those are the brushes that we'll be creating, and creating our own custom brushes. So there we have our logo. We're going to start with the background. So the background, very simply, I'm going to draw my rectangle and fill the background with my my lovely light color. There you go. I'm going to just delete these out of the way. And if we look at our layers, we have my logo and type. I'm going to want to lock that. If I put that, there we go, I've got my background there. So I'm going to lock my logo and type, and I might as well lock everything until I get there, until I need them. So there's my background. I'm just going to create my sky. So I'm probably going to create it at about a third of the height. So it's a 420 height. I have an A3 document, so I'm going to make it about 140. My sky. My sky, I'm going to make it the lighter greeny color. And then I can just use my align tool to make sure that I align it to the artboard and just center it. I want to center it and align it to the top. And then I can just drag it down to then create my ocean. My ocean color, I'm going to do the darker green. I might just pull that down a little bit more. Perfect. So there I have my background colors. So I'll go to my layers, I'm just going to lock that. For my mountain, I'm going to be tracing my mountain from one of my images. Because this is a popular beach that has a distinctive headland, I'm just going to go into that image. And with my tracings layer open, I'm just going to change that to a template. So it kind of puts it in the background. And then just use your pen tool to unlock it first, of course, to just trace this headland and try and get in a little bit of detail. Not too much detail. I'm just going to switch that so I can see my line. And I'll just keep tracing, and we'll just speed up this video until we finish tracing. So there we have our tracings. I'm just going to add some color to that. So it is really rough, but this is fine for this kind of style of poster. So I'm just going to ungroup that. I'm going to make my little mountain yellowy color and the lights. I'll make them the lighter color. I'll remove the line. I'm going to make my mountain the more yellowy color, and then I'm just going to put a red on the roof. There we go. And then I'll just check which layer I'm on. So I'm going to take that, whoops, let's not leave that behind. I'm going to take that from that layer. So select it all. Lock that layer, go to my mountain. Let's go to my artboard. And I'm going to paste the mountain there. Just move it up. We're going to scale that up a little bit. And there you can see a really simple outline starts to create the distinctive coastline for that particular area. And we're just going to lock that for that now. And then the sun and clouds, this is where we're going to start to create custom brushes to create these elements in our scene. So I'll just quickly map out where my sun might be. So I'm just going to draw a sun over there and just drag it up. So I'd like to get those kind of like radial lines happening. So if we go back to our poster, you can see those kind of lines happening. That's what we want to create here. So with our sun, we're going to have a look first at some of the brushes here that I've created. So the sun brush is just a line that I've created using the line tool. So you create your line. You can just do it black. Go to your stroke, and we can make it about 3 or 4 point, and make it a width profile of 3 to begin with. So we can create some lines in this way. You can make some thinner, some thicker. You can also add a little bit of roughness to that. So if we go Effect, Distort and Transform and go to Roughen, we just want it really quite small. Make it smooth. You can preview that. So you can create a bit of a rough line if you like. You can add less detail in that. Go OK. And so you create just an interesting line effect. And then once you have your line created, just copy it, just select all of it, and then open up your brushes. It should look like that. And then just drag it into your brushes. Now you want to select Art Brush, go OK. And then if you have a Wacom tablet, like I have one, you can change this to pressure. So it will respond to the pressure of the pen. If you are just using a mouse, stay with fixed. I'm going to do pressure, and then I'm going to change that to 50% and 150%. and make sure that stretch to fit stroke length is selected, and the direction. So generally from the thicker end to the thinner end. And then colorization, we can change to U-shift, which means that you can actually change the color of that brush and go OK. So there we have our sun, and we're going to do our clouds. Our clouds also just created, just drawing them. You can just create a little bit of a interesting shape. And you can always go in and change it a little bit later. But it can be really quite rough. Fill that and stretch it. Make it a little bit thinner in parts. And you can also create a few, you can just duplicate that. A few variations of your clouds. Strange points. And then you can also combine a couple. So hold down Option to just create a copy, and then you can duplicate some of those and combine them into one shape or combination of shapes like that. So once you have your clouds created, you can just take them, drag them again into your brushes, create an art brush, go OK. Again, fixed if you're using a mouse. If you've got a Wacom tablet, you can go pressure and go 50 to 150%, stretch to fit stroke length, and generally from left to right, U-shift yes, and go OK. And I'm just going to use this one too. One, drag that in, art brush, OK. Forgot to mention, you can give them names if you like, so I can call that clouds too. Same thing, pressure. I'm going to change that because I have a Wacom tablet. Stretch to fit stroke length, direction, and U-shift yes, and go OK. So there we have some brushes now that we can start to use back in our artwork. So if I go back to my layers, I'm going to stay with my sun and clouds. So selecting your sun, the outline, I'm going to change that to the brush that I've just created. Just pull the brushes out so that we can see them. There we go. So I'm just going to add that outline. There we go. And you can change the stroke. And I'm just going to create another one and take away the fill, and then you start to see the line. So I'm going to rotate it a little bit so that I get a slightly different effect. Duplicate that one too, and oops, again just rotate it so that I don't have the same brush strokes duplicated one on top of the other. I can also change the stroke of that, so you can make it a little bit finer if you like. And there we go. That gives you a good idea of what we can do for the sun. And then for our clouds, I'm just going to group that and align it. Make sure it's aligned to selection. There we go. And then our clouds, same thing. We can use our brush and just draw our clouds. So it will use the last brush I used, so I'll just select that and make sure that I've got that selected. I'm going to make it white and select one of my clouds. There we go, and maybe just do So I'm going across here, and smaller one there, and you can change your stroke there too. And we can use the double one. We'll do one up here, and I will select that and give it the double, and then you can always go in and make it bigger or smaller, stretch it along, or even change the curve of the line that you've created. So you can select individual points and change the curve. There we go. And move a little bit on across. To duplicate, just hold down Option. There we go. So there we have our clouds. We'll go back to our layers and we'll just close it off. The water details. Now to create some water lines in the water, we're going to create a brush that looks a bit like this. So our ocean brush, here we can use the blob brush tool. So Shift B to get that brush. Now if you're using a Wacom tablet, you can double click on your brush, and here you can change how the brush behaves. So you can get a really accurate line, which will give you a rougher line, or really smooth, move it across. You can also change the size of the brush. And then if you've got a Wacom tablet, you can change the pressure, so the variation from the size smaller than the size that is set. It can be 1 point, or you can make it a little bit higher. So I could do it 10 point, which means that my brush variation size will vary from 6 point, and then my 16 point that I've set, and then 10 more, 26 point, and go OK. And then you can hold down the blob brush tool let's just make sure where our brush is. There we go. And make sure I've got some colour. I seem to want to give me a colour. There we go. So you can create your little lines. And if you have a Wacom tablet, the harder you push, the thicker the shape will become. So I can add to this. I can double click again and make my brush a bit smaller. Whoops. There we go. So once you've created your water, again you can select it and drag it into your brushes. Art brush, OK. Again, you can create a pressure brush which will react to your Wacom tablet pressure, or keep it fixed if you're using a mouse, stretch to fit. And again, the direction should go from thick to thin, and then U-shift, yes, we want to do that so that we can change the color. And there we have our ocean color. It seems to have a white on it, so I'm just going to check. Yeah, I'm going to delete that. And I can see my brush has got some white on it, so I'm going to delete that one, go yes. and I'm going to resave this brush. You might create a few and try a few different ones and see which works. So I'll go water 1 and change my pressure again. Stretch to fit, U shift, so that we can change the color, and perhaps we want to try, let's do a little thicker one, and we can call that water 2. And again, change the same way we've changed it. You see, I didn't, I can double click on it and make sure that I've got the hue shift. Yes, okay. It's just applied it to that one, so we can delete that line. There we go. All right, so we'll go back to our poster now, and then we can start to draw some water into our layers. So go into your layers, we go to water details, and we can just use a line actually and start to draw some lines. We can apply a color to it and our stroke. So we can try that one or this one and apply a color to it. So a stroke, we're going to make it the darker color. And then we can also change the stroke weight. So we make it a little bit finer. And then hold down your shift and drag, and you can change the length of that line or the position of that line. So we start to get that kind of effect of the shimmering of the water and the shadows that fall in the water. Great. Once you have your water details, we can add our waves. So again, our waves are a different brush. So we go back to our brushes. Our waves we've created, again, using the blob brush. So the way to do it is actually get a bigger brush. So I'm going to double click on the blob brush and just get a bigger brush. Go OK. And just create a bit of a zigzag. Can make it thicker on one side to indicate where the wave is bigger. And then once you have your brush, your blob brush done, select it, and then we're going to get the wrinkle tool and we just start to play with it. So if you have a look at it, you can create quite extreme ups and downs using the wrinkle tool. So you can double click on it and change the detail in that. So I'm just going to create my wave again. And then maybe go for a smaller detail in my wave. So using the wrinkle brush, double click on it. You can change the size of the brush, the global brush dimensions. So you can make it a little bit smaller if you like and have less detail. and then it becomes a little bit more subtle. So if we zoom in there, you can see there's more detail in that one. So we can again just create our brushes. At this point, it doesn't really matter what color they are if we set it to have a hue change. So with my brushes open, I'm just going to drag in my new wave, art brush. Okay, call it wave 1, and again, have pressure set if you have a Wacom tablet, and colorization, hue shift. Okay. And then I might just use this one too because it's got a nice narrow end. Drag it into my brushes. Art brush, okay. Change it to pressure. I'm going to call it wave 2. Double click on it just to make sure I haven't finished setting it up. 50, 150, stretch to fit, direction, hue shift, okay. And then I can go back to my artwork and to my layers. And there are my waves. So I'm going to be using a white on my waves, and I can just use my brush tool, pen brush, to paint my waves in. I'm just going to make them white. I can drag across to create a wave. Okay. So I'm going to drag it all the way across. And I can create some more waves in the background. So what I'd like to do is make sure that my wave in the front is actually bigger. So I'm going to go into my line weight and change it there. Stretch it a little bit. Make a small one in the distance. Maybe just redraw it so that I can manipulate the different angle to it. Okay. And maybe make the background a whole lot thinner. Make it a bit shorter. There you go. Make the front one a bit bigger. 2.5. There we go. Go back to my layers. I have my waves. I've got my logo and my type. I might just move this down a little bit. And then my girls. So again, the same photographer, Mike Morgan. And these beautiful girls. So I'm going to be tracing them also. So I'm going to go to my tracings, and there are templates too. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and trace them as accurately as I can. And when you get to things like the leash tool, you can just use the blob brush tool, and that'll give you a good easy way to create that thin line. Like that. So it makes it really easy and smooth to be able to create little details like that. So I'll just continue with my tracing, and then I'll see you on the other side. And I have my two girls traced, so I'm going to select them, copy, go to my layers, I can lock that, go to girls, and I'm going to paste them in my scene. This one I'm going to flip, so transform and flip horizontal and make it a little bit bigger. This one I'm going to turn her so she's at a little bit more of a dramatic angle. There we go. And then I can also manipulate where my wave is sitting, just to make sure she looks like she's actually riding that wave. We're going to be adding in some details like splashes in a moment, and so it will bring some life into that layout. So I'm just going to lock that and go to my waves, and just drag that down a little bit. There we go. Lock that. We've got our waves. We're going to do our splash. So again, let's go to our brushes. So splashes look a little bit like that. So again, you can use the blob tool to create your splashes. Double click on it so it's a little bit bigger. And we can make our pressure maybe not so extreme. Let's have a look at that over brush. So I'm going to use my pen just to get double click on that to change it. Maybe a little bit smaller. Okay. Hold down the brush to get a little bit thicker. Some more splashes. And then you can go and manipulate those. Create more of a droplet with that. You can go and change the points. Get that on some sides. Narrow it in. Use the blob brush tool again, make it a little bit bigger maybe. Okay. Add a little bit to that. And then once you've got your splashes, you can play around with different shapes. Go to your brushes, select it. I think there's something strange happening there again. Select your splash, drag it into your brushes, art brush, okay. And we'll call that splash 1. Click on that. We're going to make it pressure again 50, 150 if you're using a Wacom Tablet, stretch to fit the length. And then we want to change the U shift, of course. And then we can just copy in another one. Art brush. Call that splash 2. Change the pressure. And make sure that you have U shift selected. And there we go. So we'll go back to our artwork. And then we're ready to put in some splashes. So make sure you're on the right layer. So go to your layers. We can lock that again. And then we can add some splashes. Use your paintbrush. And we'll just make sure that we have the right color selected. So we make sure that they're white There you go. So use your paintbrush just to add a little bit of movement there. And again, you can change the weight of the stroke. Select it, hold down Shift, drag to create some more splashes. You can make them shorter. And just create a little bit more energy in the image. And because in the original photograph there was quite a bit of splashing around her leg at the bottom here, we'll do the same so that it doesn't look, this leg over here doesn't look too strange. There we go. So we have our splashes, we've got our tracings, we're going to do a border, but before we do that we're going to go back to our background, just do something here with the ocean so that the bottom isn't so clean. So I might just extend it a bit, and then get your wrinkle tool again. Let's just double click on it to see where we're at. Or maybe just put it in a little bit more detail, and we've got it at 40. Let's give that a go and see. So we just want to add a little bit, so just drag it along just to give it some variation there, and hold it down a little bit longer to get a little bit more happening there. So that just gives it a little bit more not so static, I suppose. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So what we're going to do now is add a border to that, and then add our leaves, which gives it a nice sense of depth. So a border, I'm just going to use the full size of my artboard. Doesn't really matter what color it is at the moment. And then we're going to go Object, Path, Offset Path. I'm going to offset it minus 15 millimeters and go OK. And then I just want to curve the corners a little bit. So get the direct selection tool, and you see the little circle widgets. Just drag and you can change the radius of that corner to something that you like. And then select both of those shapes. And then we're going to go to Pathfinder and knock the front out of the back. Okay, we're just going to change that color, of course, to our background color, and that's going to work a whole lot better. There we go. Don't worry about all the little bits sticking out on the ends. We'll be getting rid of that when we mask off everything. And so you start to frame your artwork. What we're going to do now is add some leaves to the outer edges. Now again, we're going to create a brush to do this. So if we go to our brushes, there's a very basic leaf over there. I'll create maybe something more interesting. So we'll go to our layers, go to our brushes, unlock that, and maybe create something, and just draw a basic leaf shape. I'm just going to make that black. And zoom in a little bit, and then we can just create a line that runs through the center of that. And then you can change the line stroke. Perhaps you want to do a variation in that line, and then we want to outline that stroke. Yeah, there you go. Select that line, go Object, Path, Outline Stroke, and then we just want to knock it out of this leaf shape. So I'm going to select the front, select the back, go to Pathfinder, and knock it out. So that way the white is transparent. Might just manipulate this path a little bit more so we can create an interesting shape. There we go. So once we have our leaf, select your leaf and again open up your brushes palette, and we're going to drag our leaf in. Make it an art brush, go OK. We're going to call that leaf. And do exactly the same thing. If you want to add pressure to that, if you've got a Wacom Tablet, stretch to fit, direction, use Shift, yes, and go OK. And we'll go back to our artwork. And now we can go to our layers, and we're going to lock our brushes, our border, and we have leaves right at the top, and we can start to draw some leaves. So we'll just open up our brushes, make sure that we've got our leaf selected, and we're going to be making it blue color. So let's just select it. So we'll use our darker color because that's in the foreground. So you can just start to draw leaves using that brush. I just like to play around first just to see what it looks like. And we can always go back and scale some of them. Add some on this side. So this does help to give that sense of depth, like you are looking through a frame. Add details in the image. And then if you like, you can just go in and move some of the leaves, scale them up, arrange them so they work better with your image. And then you can also just change the stroke weight on that if you want to make them a little bit thicker. Just do that 1.5. So if you were going to print this artwork from the Illustrator file, what you would do to all these strokes that you've created is to expand them. So you would select them, go Object, expand Appearance, and that way it creates the outline. So from the line, it creates the outline, as you can see. So that's what you would do. But because we're going to be taking it into Photoshop, we don't really need to do that right now, but that's just something good to know. So then you can clean up your image if you like. I'm just going to move my girl across a little bit. So we have our Illustrator artwork, and then we're going to add some texture and some noise and saturation in Photoshop. So we'll just save that and then go into Photoshop, open, and we can open that poster there. We're going to open just the first one. We can do 300 pixels per inch, and we'll just do it CMYK and go OK. And there we go, there's our artwork. So what we'll do, we'll go into our layers and we'll save our original layer and just duplicate that by dragging it down and duplicate the layer. So we can call that original, and that way if we ever want to go back to the original one, we know that that's where it is. There's our copy. In between that, we're going to add a solid color, and we're going to make sure it's the same color as most of this background and go OK. So we have a solid color fill. On our copy, we're going to add a layer mask. select that, and then we're going to use some brushes to add a bit of a distressed look. So if you did the vintage Asian poster, there are some grunge brushes there, but I will add a link to the brushes here too. So our grunge brushes are over here, and they're really good for creating a bit of distressed look. So make sure you're working on your layer mask, not on your actual image. So click onto the white little thumbnail, and then you can just start to do some big dabs with that brush to start to take away a little bit of the color. So maybe you just want to do a general all over with a big brush, and then perhaps you want to just work into some areas a little bit more. Sometimes the edges are a little bit more worn away. And just play around with what you can create. You can also add a little bit more texture if you like, so you can just zoom in and see if you're getting the desired effect. You can also add some noise if you like. Filter, add noise. And just see if that suits your artwork. I don't think I really need it. So you can create some smaller brushes if you like, and just go in and distress a little bit more. It's up to you. And then what I like to do is add a little bit of saturation, as though it's been over inked in the printing process. So again, we go to our layers, and we're going to add use saturation. So you can really drag the saturation across, and you can see what it does. So with these layer adjustments, you can really try different things. Drag the saturation down so it looks like it's faded, or you can do, and we can just try that as an example. So you can see what your original looked like. Just click on and off the saturation. So that's one way to create a look. You can also change the hue of the whole image. So just by dragging it across, it starts to change all the colors in the image. So you can create some interesting things and create some variations of the poster. You can also play with your lightness. And you can also colorize. So colorizing, you click on that. You can really change the colors to create various, sort of like one color poster looks, if you want to create variations of the same poster. Or you can go back. Cool. So I like to add just some saturation. Just see what I can create with the different hues. So that's all from Dex for today. Hope you have fun using custom brushes in Illustrator and taking your illustrations through to Photoshop, using some adjustment layers and creating a lovely kind of texture using the brushes in Photoshop too. Feel free to load up your artwork. We're looking forward to seeing what you can create. That's all from us for today. Goodbye.